a former casino surveillance operator just revealed something that completely changed how I understand slot machines. And what he told me about 7 verified cases where players actually beat the house could save you from making a huge mistake the next time you walk onto a casino floor. I'm talking about documented incidents where the mathematics that always favor the casino somehow broke down, where the house edge disappeared, and where players legally walked away with money that casinos never intended to pay. These aren't myths or rumors. These are cases with gaming commission reports, internal casino documentation, and in some instances, legal settlements that casinos tried desperately to keep quiet. What you're about to hear are 7 verified instances where the ironclad certainty of casino mathematics just stopped working, and I'm counting them down based on how much they reveal about the vulnerabilities that still exist in the system today. Case number 1 happened in 2007 on a Norwegian cruise ship, and it involves a software glitch that turned a standard progressive jackpot into what one former technician called a slot machine ATM. The machine was a mega jackpot progressive, the kind you've probably walked past 100 times with that big digital display, showing a jackpot climbing towards 6 figures. A player named Patricia sat down at this machine with $40, playing quarter denomination, nothing unusual about her session at all. She'd been playing maybe 20 minutes when the progressive jackpot triggered. She won $15,000. According to the payout receipt that later became part of the cruise line's internal investigation, the jackpot should have been sitting at approximately $750,000, based on the number of spins across the network since the last major hit. The progressive was programmed to trigger on average once every 2.4 million spins, across all linked machines. Patricia's win happened at roughly 48,000 spins into the cycle. The math was completely wrong. Here's what former slot technicians who serviced these machines revealed in documentation that surfaced during the manufacturer's recall. The software controlling the progressive jackpot meter had a bug in how it calculated the trigger threshold. Instead of requiring the full probability cycle, the glitch caused the system to divide the threshold by 50. The jackpot was triggering at 1/50th of its intended frequency. Patricia wasn't the only winner. According to internal reports from the cruise line, 12 different players hit this supposedly million-spin jackpot over a 72-hour period. The cruise line paid out over $180,000 before a technician noticed the jackpot was resetting and triggering again far too quickly. The manufacturer was called. They pulled the logs. The error was confirmed. What makes this case remarkable isn't just that the software failed. It's what happened next. The cruise line's legal team reviewed the situation and determined they had no choice but to honor every single payout. The machines had been certified by the manufacturer. The gaming operations were licensed. The players had done nothing wrong. They'd simply pressed the button and won what the machine told them they'd won. According to internal reports that came out when the manufacturer had to recall 47 machines across 3 cruise lines, the software bug had existed in the code for 8 months. It only manifested under specific conditions related to how often the progressive meter updated, which is why land-based casinos using the same software never encountered it. The confined network on cruise ships, with fewer machines and different server update protocols, created the perfect conditions for the glitch to surface. The manufacturer quietly settled with the cruise lines, paid for the losses, and issued a patch. Most players never knew this happened. Patricia and the 11 others just thought they'd gotten incredibly lucky. But if you think that's lucky, wait until you hear about case number 2, because this one involves something far more calculated than a software accident. Case number 2 happened in 2014 at the Borgata Casino in Atlantic City, and it involves a flaw in how random number generators reset during system maintenance. This case is different, because the players who exploited it knew exactly what they were doing. A group that investigators later referred to as the Jersey Collective, 4 players who never met inside the casino but coordinated their sessions through encrypted communications, walked away with $127,000 in a single weekend. Here's what former slot technicians report about what these players discovered. The casino's slot management system performed server updates every Sunday morning at 2 a.m. During these updates, certain older model machines had their random number generators reseated, using a timestamp-based algorithm. For exactly 14 minutes between 2:17 and 2:31 a.m., specific machines became partially predictable. The vulnerability wasn't obvious. It required understanding how the RNG reseeding process worked, knowing which machine models were affected, and having the statistical knowledge to identify the pattern. According to documentation that surfaced during the Gaming Commission's investigation, the Jersey Collective had someone with access to technical specifications, possibly a former technician or engineer familiar with that specific slot management system. They knew that during this narrow window, the machines would produce clusters of outcomes that followed a detectable pattern. Not perfectly predictable, but predictable enough that a player with proper bankroll management could gain a statistical edge. One member of the group would play during the window, betting maximum credits on specific pay lines that the analysis suggested would hit with elevated frequency. The vulnerability existed for 8 months before the casino's analytics team noticed an unusual clustering of significant wins during early Sunday morning, hours on a specific set of machines. The casino pulled surveillance footage. They saw the same 4 players never interacting, always arriving separately, always playing the same machines during the same time window. The casino suspected collusion, but couldn't prove coordination. More importantly, the players hadn't touched the machines, hadn't used any devices, hadn't done anything except press buttons. The Gaming Commission investigated. They confirmed the RNG vulnerability existed. They determined the manufacturer's software had a flaw. But they also determined the players had broken no laws. The casino couldn't demonstrate that the players had accessed proprietary information illegally. The winnings stood. The Jersey Collective kept every dollar. The manufacturer issued a patch. The vulnerability was closed. And speaking of players who figured out the system, case number 3 is going to show you how sometimes the casino's own regulations create opportunities they never intended. Case number 3 happened between 2016 and 2018 in Australia, and it involves a regulatory requirement that created what one professional gambler called a legal money printer. Australian gaming regulations mandated something called feature guarantee disclosure. Every slot machine had to clearly display the maximum number of spins within which a bonus feature was mathematically guaranteed to trigger. The regulators implemented this rule to protect players, to ensure transparency, to prevent machines from going thousands of spins without ever awarding a feature. A player named Marcus, who'd spent 15 years as a professional poker player before Australia's online poker laws changed, was walking through Crown Casino in Melbourne when he noticed these small printed disclosures on the machine glass. Queen of the Nile had a label stating that the free spins feature would trigger within a maximum of 625 spins. 50 Lions displayed a high guarantee of 580 spins. Marcus stopped walking. He stood there looking at these disclosures that thousands of players walked past every single day without reading, and he realized something the casino apparently hadn't fully considered. Here's what Marcus documented in the spreadsheets he maintained over 18 months, records that later became evidence in the regulatory review that changed these laws. If a machine guaranteed a feature within 625 spins, and he could identify machines that were deep into their cycle, he could play only those machines that were approaching the guarantee threshold. He didn't need to play from spin 1. He could watch, count, and only sit down when the expected value shifted in his favor. Marcus spent 3 weeks observing machine behavior, timing how long average players stayed, tracking roughly how many spins machines went between features. He created a system. He'd arrive at the casino at 6 a.m. when the overnight players were leaving and machines had been running for hours. He'd walk the floor with a notepad, watching for machines that clearly hadn't hit a feature in a long time. According to his documentation, he could estimate spin count within about 30 spins based on observation time and average play speed. When he identified a machine he calculated was past spin 580 on a 625 guarantee, he'd sit down and play minimum bet until the feature triggered. The mathematics worked exactly as he'd calculated. Former slot floor managers who were interviewed during the regulatory review stated they watched Marcus do this for months and didn't understand what he was doing. It looked like he was just playing slots. He'd sit down, play for 20 or 30 minutes, hit a feature, sometimes leave immediately, sometimes play a bit longer. According to documented casino reports that surfaced when the Regulatory Commission investigated, Marcus won $340,000 over 18 months using this method. It was completely legal. He wasn't manipulating machines, he wasn't using devices. He was reading the legally required disclosures and playing a mathematically optimal strategy based on publicly posted information. The casinos complained to the Regulatory Commission. They argued Marcus was exploiting the spirit of the law. The commission reviewed the case and determined he'd broken no rules. The feature guarantee regulation was written to protect players. Marcus had simply understood the mathematics better than the casino expected any player would. Internal data that came out during this review showed only 0.3% of players ever noticed the guarantee disclosures. The casinos had treated them as a regulatory compliance formality, never seriously considering that a player might systematically exploit the information. Marcus kept every dollar. The casinos lobbied extensively to change the regulations. In 2019, they succeeded. The new rules still required feature guarantees but removed the requirement to disclose the specific number. The vulnerability closed. But for those 18 months, Marcus had found a completely legal way to shift the house edge into his favor. Now you might be wondering if there's an even more obvious casino mistake, and before I reveal case number 4, which involves the single biggest payout on this entire list, I'd really appreciate it if you'd subscribe and let me know in the comments. Have you ever suspected a slot machine was broken in your favor? Okay, here's where things get really interesting. Case number 4 happened in 2019 at a major Las Vegas Strip property that cannot be named due to the settlement terms. And it involves a progressive jackpot network that was growing 340% faster than the mathematics said it should. A retired teacher named Cynthia was playing Mega Fortune Dreams at $2 denomination when she triggered the progressive jackpot. The slot machine locked up, the lights started flashing, and the screen displayed $2.3 million. Cynthia screamed. Other players crowded around, slot attendants arrived. And then something unusual happened. The floor supervisor looked at the jackpot amount, looked at his tablet showing the progressive network data, and his face changed. According to former employees who were present that night, there was an immediate radio call to surveillance, then to the slot director, then to the casino manager. Cynthia sat at that locked machine for 40 minutes while casino staff made phone calls. Finally, a casino executive she'd never seen approached and told her there was a problem with the jackpot. They needed to investigate before any payout could be authorized. Here's what former casino surveillance staff who were present that night later revealed in depositions that became part of the Gaming Commission investigation. The casino's slot management system had flagged an anomaly in the progressive network 3 weeks earlier. The Mega Fortune Dreams machines on the casino floor had been connected to an existing multi-property progressive network, a standard practice that lets jackpots grow faster by pooling bets from multiple casinos. The technical team had configured the new machines to contribute to the existing meter. What they failed to account for was the contribution rate calculation. The network was programmed based on an expected number of machines and an expected average bet size. When this casino added 12 new machines to the network, all configured at higher denominations than the network average, the progressive meter started climbing far faster than the probability math anticipated. According to internal technical documentation that surfaced during the legal battle, the progressive should have taken 14 months to reach $2.3 million based on the hit frequency programmed into the game. It got there in 4 months. The mathematics broke down like this. The game's random number generator was programmed to trigger the progressive jackpot approximately once every 8.2 million spins across the entire network. The jackpot size was supposed to grow in proportion to that probability, creating a long-term return to player percentage of 91%. But with the accelerated contribution rate from the improperly configured new machines, players were feeding the meter 340% faster than the RNG's trigger frequency expected. Former game mathematicians who reviewed the case estimated that during those 4 months, the actual RTP on these specific machines was approximately 127%. The house edge had completely inverted. Every dollar played was mathematically worth $1.27 in expected return. Cynthia had triggered a jackpot that shouldn't have existed yet, hitting a probability event that was supposed to happen 14 months in the future. The casino initially refused to pay. Their legal position was that the jackpot amount constituted a machine malfunction, and Nevada gaming regulations state that malfunctions void all pays. Cynthia hired an attorney. The Gaming Commission launched an investigation. Here's where the casino's argument fell apart. Investigators pulled the machine logs, examined the network configuration, and reviewed the technical specifications. The individual slot machine that Cynthia played had functioned perfectly. The random number generator operated correctly. The reel stopped, where the RNG dictated. The jackpot triggered exactly when the programming said it should trigger. There was no malfunction in the machine itself. The error was in how the casino had configured the network contribution rates. That wasn't a machine malfunction, that was a casino setup error. According to former employees who testified during the Gaming Commission proceedings, internal emails showed the casino's technical team had been warned about the configuration issue 2 weeks before Cynthia's win. A slot technician had sent a message to management stating the progressive was climbing too fast and recommending an immediate audit. Management had scheduled the audit for the following month. They never got there. The Gaming Commission ruled the casino had to pay. The error was not Cynthia's fault. The machine had operated as programmed, and the casino's own negligence in network configuration couldn't be used to void a legitimate win. The casino paid the $2.3 million dollars. Then they paid additional damages for the delay and the emotional distress of the refused payout. The final settlement amount was never publicly disclosed, but former casino executives involved in the case stated it exceeded $3 million total. The ironic detail that makes this case particularly remarkable is that Gaming Commission analysis estimated approximately 4,000 different players had spun those misconfigured machines during the 4-month vulnerability window. Every single one of them was playing a game with a positive expected value. Every single one of them had a mathematical advantage over the house. Only Cynthia actually hit the jackpot. But here's what makes case number 5 even more remarkable, because unlike every case so far where the casino made an error, this one involves players who figured out how to beat a machine that was working exactly as designed. And what's even more shocking is that the casino knew about the advantage and didn't fix it. Case number 5 happened between 2011 and 2015 in Tokyo gaming parlors, and it involves a fundamental difference between Japanese pachislo machines and Western-style slots that created an advantage so significant that an entire underground community formed around exploiting it. The player who revealed how this worked was an engineering student named Takeshi, and what he discovered required understanding something most people don't know about Japanese gaming machines. Unlike American slots where you press a button and watch the reel spin to a predetermined outcome, pachislo machines have skill stop buttons. You can physically stop each reel individually. The Japanese gaming industry designed these buttons to give players a sense of control, to make the experience feel more interactive than pure chance. What the manufacturers assumed was that human reaction time couldn't be precise enough to actually influence outcomes. Takeshi proved that assumption catastrophically wrong. Here's what former parlor operators report about the specific pachislo models that became vulnerable. Games like Neon Genesis Evangelion and Hokuto no Ken were programmed with timing windows where the reel positions could be influenced if a player stopped the reels at exactly the right microsecond. We're talking about 0.03 second windows. The manufacturers assumed no human being could consistently achieve that level of precision. They were wrong. Takeshi spent 8 months studying these machines, recording videos of reel sequences, analyzing the timing patterns frame by frame on his computer. He documented that certain symbol combinations appeared in predictable sequences. If you could identify where in the sequence the reel currently sat, and if you could stop it within that infinitesimal timing window, you could force specific symbols into paying positions. According to Takeshi's documentation, which he kept in detailed spreadsheets, Tracking every session over 4 years, mastering this technique required approximately 200 hours of practice. Most players never came close, but those who achieved the necessary precision could shift the return to player percentage from 97% to somewhere between 103 and 106%. The mathematics worked because the machines were programmed assuming random stop points. When skilled players could force non-random stops, the entire probability model collapsed. Takeshi documented winning 14.2 million yen, approximately 127,000 US dollars, over those 4 years. But he wasn't alone. An underground community of timing players emerged across Tokyo, estimated at 200 to 300 individuals who'd mastered the technique. They communicated through encrypted forums, sharing information about which parlors had which vulnerable models, which times of day had the loosest security, and how to avoid detection. Former parlor managers who were interviewed when these machines were finally phased out stated they would watch these players and couldn't visually detect what they were doing differently. The hand movements looked identical to regular players. The difference was happening at a level of precision invisible to the human eye. One parlor manager stated he'd watched Takeshi play for 3 hours straight, studied the surveillance footage in slow motion afterward, and still couldn't identify the technique. What made this situation particularly complex legally was that these players weren't technically cheating. They weren't using devices, they weren't manipulating the machines. They were pressing buttons that the machine explicitly invited them to press. The skill stop feature was an intentional design element. The fact that some players could use it with extraordinary precision didn't constitute unfair advantage in the legal sense. It was genuinely skilled play. Parlor. Operators couldn't prove any rules were being broken. According to internal parlor reports that surfaced when the vulnerable models were discontinued, these skilled players had a win rate 400% higher than average players on the same machines. The gap was so statistically obvious that some parlors tried banning suspected timing players. Those players threatened legal action. The parlors backed down. They couldn't ban people for being skilled at a skill-based game feature. The manufacturers eventually responded by phasing out these models entirely and replacing them with newer versions that used pure random number generation with no timing influence possible. The vulnerability closed, but for those 4 years, a small group of players had discovered something remarkable. They'd found machines where genuine skill could overcome the house edge, where practice and precision could shift the mathematics into the player's favor. The psychological element that makes this case fascinating is how few players ever achieved this advantage, despite the information being publicly available. Takeshi published his initial findings on forums. Other players read about the technique. 99.9% of them couldn't execute it. The timing precision required was simply beyond normal human capability without extensive training. Now, all of these cases involved either mistakes or loopholes, but case number 6 is different because this one involves a machine that was working exactly as programmed. The casino just didn't understand their own math. And what these industry insiders revealed about how long this went on will shock you. We're getting to the final 2 cases, and both of them involve something casinos never expected: players actually reading the rules. Case number 6 started in 2013 at a regional casino chain in the Midwest, and it involves a promotion called Cash Eruption that turned into what one former casino marketing director described as the most expensive mistake of his career. The casino offered mystery multiplier events where certain slot machines would randomly award between 2 times and 10 times credits on wins. It sounded like a standard promotional gimmick, the kind of thing casinos run constantly to drive player excitement. A player named David, a former actuary who'd taken early retirement, was playing during this promotion when he noticed something in the fine print of the promotional terms. The terms stated that multipliers applied to credited wins, not bet amounts. That distinction seemed minor. Most players never thought about it. David sat down with a calculator and the full promotional terms and realized something devastating. The casino had made an error that would cost them nearly $500,000, and the case that resulted changed how promotions are regulated across the entire state. But before I tell you exactly how much David won and how the legal battle played out, You need to understand why this happened, because the explanation reveals something crucial about case number 7, which involves the biggest industry-wide flaw on this entire list. The mathematics David calculated revealed something the casino's marketing team had completely missed when they designed the cash eruption promotion. When he read that mystery multipliers applied to credited wins rather than bet amounts, he understood immediately what that meant for feature-based slot games. Most slot machines have bonus features, free spin rounds where you're not actively betting, because the spins are free, but you're still winning credits based on the payable. The promotional terms didn't exclude these features. They didn't specify base game only, they just said mystery multipliers would apply to credited wins. David ran the numbers and realized that if a 10 times mystery multiplier activated during a free spin feature that was already paying 50 times the original triggering bet, the mathematics would compound. The multiplier would apply to each individual free spin win, not just the total feature payout. He was looking at effective multipliers of 500 times or more. According to analysis of casino records that were subpoenaed during the legal proceedings, David played for 11 consecutive days during the 2-week promotion period. His strategy was methodical and documented in a notebook he maintained at the machine. He would play minimum bet, 25 cents, until he triggered a free spin feature on games like Buffalo or Zeus. The moment the feature triggered, he'd immediately max bet for the next spin, hoping to catch a mystery multiplier event during the free spins that were about to play. When that didn't work, he'd drop back to minimum bet and repeat. The cycle. The surveillance footage that the casino reviewed after the promotion ended showed David doing this for hours at a time. And what's remarkable is that casino staff watched him do it in real time and didn't realize what was happening. They saw a player varying his bet size, which isn't unusual. Plenty of players increase bets when they feel lucky or decrease them after losses. Nobody recognized he was timing max bets specifically to coincide with features that would generate multiple win events where mystery multipliers could stack. According to former casino surveillance staff who testified during the Gaming Commission hearing, they had 4 cameras on David during the final 3 days of the promotion because his win total had flagged their system. They watched every hand movement, checked for devices, reviewed every spin. They found nothing suspicious because he wasn't doing anything suspicious. He was pressing buttons exactly as the game and promotion allowed. David won $411,000 during those 11 days. $387,000 of that came during mystery multiplier events that occurred during free spin features. The casino noticed his win rate only after the promotion ended, and the accounting department flagged the payout total. They pulled all the footage, reviewed every session, read the promotional terms they'd published, and discovered what David had known from day one. The terms as written allowed exactly what he'd done. The casino's legal team tried to argue abuse of promotional intent. David's attorney responded with a 4-page letter that simply quoted the casino's own promotional terms line by line, showing that David had followed every single rule exactly as written. The smoking gun came from internal emails that David's legal team subpoenaed. A junior analyst in the marketing department had sent a message to the promotional design team 3 days before the cash eruption launch asking whether they'd considered how the mystery multipliers would interact with feature wins. The email was never answered. The promotion launched without anyone from gaming compliance ever reviewing the mathematical implications. Documentation shows the casino spent $127,000 on promotion design, marketing materials, and advertising. They never spent a single dollar on mathematical analysis of how the multipliers could combine with existing game features. The Gaming Commission ruled in David's favor. The terms were clear, unambiguous, and legally binding. The casino had to pay the full $411,000, plus a $50,000 penalty for attempting to withhold winnings from a legitimate promotion. The aftermath changed state gaming regulations permanently. New rules required that all promotional offers undergo mathematical analysis and gaming compliance review before launch. The casino's marketing director, whose team had designed Cash, Eruption, resigned 6 weeks after the settlement. According to industry insiders who worked at competing properties, this case caused 14 other casinos across 3 states to immediately cancel similar mystery multiplier promotions they'd been planning. The mathematical review revealed that 12 of those 14 promotions had similar vulnerabilities where multipliers could stack with features in unintended ways. The irony that former casino executives still discuss is that the entire disaster could have been prevented with a single phone call to their gaming mathematics consultant. That consultation would have cost $1,500. Instead, the mistake cost nearly $500,000. And if you think that promotional oversight failure is bad for the casino, wait until you hear about case number 7, because this final case involves something even more fundamental than a promotional mistake. Something that changed how slot machines and video poker games are programmed across the entire industry. This one is so significant that it exposed a mathematical flaw that had existed in certain machines for over a decade, sitting on casino floors in plain sight while thousands of players walked past, never realizing these machines were actually beatable. What happened when one mathematics professor on vacation decided to verify the optimal strategy charts the casino was giving away for free, cost the industry an estimated $40 to $60 million? And the player who discovered it wasn't even trying to beat the casino, he was just checking whether the math was correct. The reality that former casino executives want you to understand before you start thinking you can find the next vulnerability is that the modern casino industry has spent hundreds of millions of dollars specifically because these 7 cases happened. According to industry technical documentation, today's slot systems monitor individual machine performance against mathematical models in real time using artificial intelligence algorithms that can detect statistical anomalies within hours, not the months or years these historical cases required. If a machine deviates from its expected return to player percentage by more than 2% over 10,000 spins, it triggers an automatic investigation that involves pulling the software logs, reviewing surveillance footage, and sometimes physically inspecting the hardware. The progressive jackpot miscalculation in case number 4 that lasted 4 months would be flagged in 4 days under current monitoring systems. The RNG reseeding vulnerability in case number 2 that existed for 8 months would likely be caught in the first week through pattern recognition software that specifically watches for clustered wins during unusual time windows. Former Gaming Commission officials who worked on the regulatory changes these cases produced reveal that all 7 incidents led to specific new requirements that didn't exist before. Every new game now requires a minimum of 10 million simulated spins before regulatory approval, third-party mathematical certification from independent testing laboratories, and complete source code review by Gaming Commission technical staff. The feature guarantee loophole that Marcus exploited in Australia for $340,000 led to regulatory changes across multiple jurisdictions. Most now require feature guarantees but prohibit disclosing the specific spin count, closing that mathematical advantage permanently. After the cash eruption disaster, most gaming jurisdictions implemented mandatory gaming compliance review of all promotional mathematics before launch. Marketing departments can't create promotions without sign-off from mathematicians who model every possible interaction between promotional mechanics and existing game features. The detection sophistication extends beyond just the mathematics. Internal casino documents show they track player behavior patterns using the same data analytics that online retailers use to predict shopping habits. Unusual win rates trigger review even if no specific rules appear broken. A player who consistently plays only machines approaching feature guarantees would be identified within days. Someone who varies bet size and patterns that correlate with promotional multiplier timing would flag the system immediately. These 7 cases represent the absolute rarest exceptions in an industry that processes billions of spins annually. They happened because casinos made mistakes they no longer make, because regulatory oversight hadn't yet evolved to prevent them, and because surveillance and mathematical monitoring were generations behind where they are today. What these cases proved is that gaming regulation actually works. When casinos make mistakes, players can win and keep their winnings if they played legally. In every single one of these 7 cases, the player followed the rules as written or as programmed. That legal principle remains protected. The rules still matter in ways that benefit informed players. In both the cash eruption case and the video poker optimal strategy gap, players won simply by reading terms carefully and understanding mathematics better than the casino expected. That lesson has practical application even today. You can't find another bonus poker deluxe with 101% return under optimal play, but you can read promotional terms carefully like David did. You can verify whether bonus eligibility rules create unintended advantages. You can check whether the casino's published strategy cards match mathematically optimal play. Several of these players documented everything. They kept screenshots of promotional terms, maintained spreadsheets of sessions, recorded win and loss totals with timestamps. That documentation protected their winnings when casinos tried to claim the wins were invalid. Understanding that legal advantage play exists changes how you think about casino rules and terms, even if you never encounter a vulnerability like these 7. The hidden consequence that casinos don't advertise is that these cases cost manufacturers more than they cost casinos. According to internal settlement documents, game manufacturers paid over $12 million in various settlements related to these incidents. Former casino executives reveal that large properties carry game malfunction insurance specifically because of cases like the progressive jackpot miscalculation. The design philosophy shifted across the entire industry toward what internal technical documentation calls defensive mathematics. Pay tables designed with margin for error to protect against configuration mistakes. This actually means slightly lower means return to player percentages on newer games. The house protects against mathematical mistakes by increasing the edge on everything. Players winning $60 million on the video poker case led to industry-wide return percentage reductions estimated to cost players over $200 million annually. Casinos became more careful, but that carefulness cost players in the long run. So now you know 7 documented cases where the mathematics actually favored the player. These cases span millions of machines, billions of spins, and 15 years of gaming industry evolution. You probably won't encounter anything like these situations, but understanding they existed shows the system has checks and balances that protect players when casinos make errors. The players who won weren't cheating. They were paying attention to details that thousands of other players missed. If you found these cases as fascinating as I did, subscribe for more investigations into gambling mathematics and casino operations, and let me know in the comments which case shocked you the most, because there are even more stories like these that never made the news.